We're only a few weeks away from the Olympics, and it's becoming clear that Team USA is steadily stamping its dominance over the entire world. It might be true that this team has only played in exhibition games over the past week, but we've seen what this squad can do when all its players are active and focused. This is arguably the greatest collection of superstars the USA has ever sent to the Olympics, with LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant leading the way for the Americans. But we did see what Nikola Jokic did to France in their exhibition game, dominating Rudy Gobert and Victor Wembanyama, the two best rim protectors in the NBA. He went on to prove that he's still the best player in the world, even compared to the megastars this Team USA has. With Jokic leading Serbia in the exhibition game, all eyes are on what Joker can do against one of the most overpowered groups of players we've seen recently. But it's also a showcase of what Team USA can do against one of the higher ranked teams in the world, especially when you consider that Serbia has a good collection of role players surrounding the best player in the world. Of course, Curry did Curry things early in the game, making use of screens and taking advantage of his incredible off-ball movement to score his country's first 9 points, including 2 3-pointers early on. It was all Curry early on for the Americans, allowing the Serbians to take advantage of the one-man show to take an early 12-9 lead. Jokic extended the lead to 5 points by throwing his body around in the post. LeBron James broke the drought, scoring the first non-Curry points. This eventually opened up the offense for the rest of the Americans. But the Serbians looked like they wanted to make a statement, outrunning and out-hustling a team that was supposed to be faster and more athletic. Serbia had several transition dunks early on, forcing the USA to rethink their approach. USA's star power kept them in the game, with guys like Anthony Davis and Anthony Edwards doing their thing to keep the game close. Serbia's outside shooting got the Americans panicking, as the USA players seemed more interested in going under the screen, possibly out of fear of Jokic dominating the paint. But this only opened up the outside of the Serbian shooters, allowing them to take a 6-point lead in the second quarter. But Joel Embiid was instrumental in helping his team go on a run. Instead of throwing his weight around in the paint, he played the role of a facilitator, throwing dimes to Drew Holiday and Stephen Curry, who already had 12 points in the second quarter. While the Joker tried to fire his team up with his scoring and leadership, Curry proved why he could be the most important player on the USA team and what is actually his first appearance in the Olympics. His 4-point play eventually jump-started an avalanche that made it almost impossible for Serbia to come back, even when Jokic was dominating his defenders. The USA's defense took over, with AD blocking shots left and right and using his defensive abilities to fuel the Americans' offense. By the third quarter, it was already a done deal for Team USA, going on a 15-0 run regardless of how well the Serbians were playing the transition game. They even got a surprising appearance from Bam Adebayo's 3-point shooting, a part of his game he's not really known for. This might convince Eric Spoelstra to allow him to shoot more outside shots coming into the 2024-25 season. This avalanche continued in the fourth quarter, highlighted by the near 40-year-old LeBron James's alley-oop dunk and more 3-pointers from Curry. Even Langston Galloway, who got a spot in this exhibition game, saw minutes in garbage time and hit a 3-pointer, although that doesn't count as an Olympic shot for the veteran role player. This exhibition game ended in an absolute blowout for Team USA, winning the game by 26 points. But as dominant as the win may have been, it didn't tell the whole story. Serbia kept the game close up to the middle part of the second quarter until Curry launched a run that eventually kept the Americans on top for good. Still, we saw a lot of good things from the Serbians, who don't have half the star power that Team USA has, but still managed to play extremely well in the first half. The first thing that stood out about Serbia is the fact that they were utilizing their outside shots to their advantage, understanding that the USA would rather keep an eye on Jokic in the paint. They also took advantage of plenty of mistakes from the blue and white squad, going for transition baskets and outrunning their counterparts up the court. But remember that this team is playing without Kevin Durant, arguably the greatest Olympic basketball player of all time. If you think that Curry is already a cheat code for this team, just wait until Kevin Durant makes his appearance and starts shooting over anyone shorter than him. Steve Kerr has also been more interested in tinkering with the lineup instead of stabilizing his starting unit. It seems like only players who are going to secure their spots in the starting lineup are Curry, James, and KD, with the final 2 slots being a toss-up for guys like Devin Booker, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, and Anthony Davis. What this means is that Kerr is being more focused on looking at which players play better together instead of going all out with his approach. The effort level wasn't there for the Americans early on, as they were still feeling the game out, especially on the defensive end. They didn't have the same defensive intensity that they showed in the second half, and this was probably their complacency dictating their competitive body language. But when they realized that the Serbians were looking to win this game to make a statement, it was all hands on deck for Team USA. The offensive approach in the second half was more of the same, with guys like Edwards and Adebayo chipping in, all while AD dominated the defensive end and dictated their defensive approach until the end of the game. Speaking of their defense, it was clear as day that Team USA was more concerned about what Jokic could possibly do. The Joker is still the greatest player on the planet, and he's arguably the best when he can use his passing skills and playmaking abilities effectively. But this Serbian team doesn't have half the talent that the Denver Nuggets have, and that explains why Jokic hasn't been averaging a lot of assists so far in the exhibition games he's played in. The attention that Jokic was getting from the defense allowed Ognan Dobric, Filip Petrusev, and Aleska Avramovic to get going at certain points of the game, but it all boiled boiled down to whether or not Jokic could contribute with his offense. The Joker, seeing multiple defenders the entire game, had flashes of dominance when he was pushing defenders around in the paint, but he shot 6 of 19 from the field to score 16 points, a far cry from his more efficient performance against Gobert, Wemby, and the rest of France. The Americans' athleticism, tenacity, and physical team defense got to Jokic. At times, it looked like he was Thanos getting beat up by the entire Team USA Avengers, but that was basically the game plan for the USA entering this exhibition game, as they knew that the only man on this Serbian team who could beat them was the 3-time NBA MVP. Neutralizing him was like cutting the snake's head off. With Jokic's offense and scrambles, it was easier for the Americans to pick this Serbian team apart, just like how Thanos was the only true threat in the final battle in Endgame. As soon as they learned how to stop the Joker, it was all over for Serbia. This wasn't what we saw when Serbia faced France. The French were looking to try to stop Jokic using their tall and lanky defensive big men, instead of putting multiple defenders on him. We saw how the Joker simply threw his weight around and scored whenever Gobert and Wemby were on him. The Americans, on the other hand, may not be as tall and long, but they're burlier, quicker, and more athletic. This allowed them to send multiple defenders on Jokic without sacrificing their defense on the other Serbian players. But one of the most interesting takeaways from this game was that the Americans weren't even at full strength and weren't giving their maximum effort. Steph was doing his usual thing of shooting the lights out, and James and AD were throwing their athleticism around on both ends of the floor. But it took a while for the players to get themselves engaged, and this is unlikely to happen in the Olympics where every game matters. There's no room for error or complacency if they want to win the gold medal, and it looks like the Serbians learned the hard way that it's going to take a lot more than just Jokic dictating the tempo to compete with this overpowered squad. Meanwhile, we saw in this game in just how good the Americans can be if they're truly looking to win this game instead of just coasting and practicing setting plays. This was the best performance we've seen from Team USA in these exhibition games, and they were already quite impressive in their closer victories against Canada and Australia, both of which are growing powerhouses in international competition as well. So when all bets are off, as we saw in the second half of the game against Serbia, Team USA knows when to explode on both ends of the court at the right moment. Now, going back to the Olympics, we know that Team USA is grouped together with Serbia, South Sudan, and Puerto Rico. In fact, they're set to open their group play against this very same Serbian team. What that means for Serbia is that this squad has a very early chance at revenge, especially if they bring their A game in their first Olympic match while hoping that everyone on Team USA suffers from a bad shooting night. They meet on July 28th, allowing us to see firsthand just how good these teams are when they're actually serious. Jokic, of course, will in out for revenge, and it's going to be interesting to see what kind of adjustments he and his teammates would make to counter the overwhelming firepower that Team USA brings to the table once that Olympic torch is lit.